Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 459. This is your guide to the geek side, and I am Todd Oxtra from the emerging frost of Minnesota, joined by Charlie Carden. He said he wouldn't talk about weather, Carden.
Damn it! And what's funny is we did Code 47 before I recorded this, and we started talking about the weather because it was me and Aaron and Jen Watson. Jen lives in Chicago, and both Jen and I overslept today, which is why we got a late start doing it. And she's like, it's cold. And I'm like, you know what? It is cold. And then we started talking about the weather. And at the end of it, I said, this is the wrong show to be talking about weather, because Todd and I do that because we're old, and old people like to talk about the weather. Anyway, yes, it is also starting to defrost here. So we're getting a warm snap in the next 2 weeks. So I have these huge icicles hanging off my house, so watch out as those come careening down. Ah! Yikes.
Quick catch.
Anyway, quick catch. Oh, man. But yeah, no, I'm excited to jump in here. Todd's going to give me a litmus test in a minute here when it comes to our cover of the week, but I don't want to spoil it before I talk about paying the bills, which is paying homage, or homage if you prefer, to the wonderful folks who support us via patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. It's that spot where we produce a lot of fun extra content. And we would love to have you give us a check out. If you visit that website, you can get a free week and listen to our fun shows. I do a show called The Facts of Geek Life, where we talk about a classic series and a season and a few episodes, and we have a good time. Todd, you've got some projects as well. Mark has too. And we overall just have a blast. So on the Friends with Benefits level, Johnson Dorf, the awesome Phoenix Sisters cosplay, Kelly was on with us last week, Brendan Myers, the Asian Sith Mistress, Corey in HD, and Matthew Keel over on the BFS level, the awesome Nias family of the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry, and my friend Missy Merchant. We are very grateful for all of you. Again, if you're listening to the show, want to see what all the fuss is about, if there is in fact a fuss, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, free 1 week trial. And we hope to see you there. And if you like what you hear, feel free to stick around. All right, it's quiz time.
Yes. So, Charlie, this week's cover, and we got this covered, is G.I. Joe 59. And if you've listened to this podcast, Charlie is a G.I. Joe aficionado. He has read more G.I. Joe than I think anyone ever. I think more than Larry Hama. I think you've beat him out.
Yeah,
now.
I did. When I met him 4 years ago, I said, look, old man.
I know more about this than you do.
I do, and I will be honest, Larry Hama, about 10, 12 years ago, picked up his pencil again, and he started writing G.I. Joe again. They renumbered it 156 because this Marvel series that we were talking about ended at 155, and he just kept it moving. I don't know how he dealt with the fact that 20 years had gone by, whatever. But now that same numbering is coming. Issue 302 just came out. 303 just came out this week. I haven't read it yet, but I can tell you what's going on here.
I want to give you my take on this without knowing anything about it. Okay. So this cover, I'm going to describe it because I have no clue what's happening. I was well out of G.I. Joe by this point. So we've got a couple of Joes in this, I don't know what we call it, like a turret that's at the top of a mountain. Then you've got I'm going to call it, I think that's the trouble bubble. I could be wrong. Maybe not.
Not correct.
So it's a thing that looks like maybe pogo legs that Cobra Commander in a bad suit.
It is called the Pogo. You're absolutely correct.
Okay, perfect. I'm great. I'm batting 100.
And again, it's an acronym standing for something, and I would have to look it up.
Pogo Operational Gadget. Oh no.
Oh yeah. Oopsie.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there
Oops,
you go.
all pogos. And then so they're shooting at the Joes on this mountain, and then you've got Hawk from Buck Rogers.
Yep, that's the guy.
Shooting at them, yeah, with these wings. He kind of looks weird. He's got some other Hawks hanging out, and that's all that's happening. I don't know why.
Okay, here's the thing. Almost nothing on this cover is representative of what happens inside. Apart from the characters. We do have all these characters. Essentially what's going on here, this is issue 59. In issue 52, the Cobra finally discovered G.I. Joe's secret headquarters. There was a huge shootout, and it was called the Pit. The Pit was destroyed and collapsed. Cobra Commander and Destro trapped under all this rebel, but they survived. They escaped using honest to God, a secret escape drill that tunneled under, and it got them to freedom. and Cobra Commander subsequently stumbles on his catatonic son, who there's his son Billy, whole big history there, but decides, I'm going to turn my life around, kidnaps his catatonic son from the hospital, drives off to Denver, Colorado, where one of his undercover CGs, or Fred series, the Crimson Guardsman, was located, and begins his life again as Cobra Commander in this crazy armor with this crazy piece of tech. Fred's companion in this is the dude in the bird suit called Raptor, and he is the Cobra bird trainer. All right. On the Joe side, the Joes are traveling in a convo with a couple of new Joes, including Tunnel Rat, who is the dude in the green that you see pictured here. And out back, the guy in the white shirt, in the front of his shirt just says survival. He's a survivalist, and Tunnel Rat is the EOD, the explosive ordnance disposal guy. They do have this turret thing, but it actually is on wheels. It never ends up at the top of a mountain. Raptor never pulls out a gun and starts shooting. And if you look at the angle vectors of this, nobody is hitting anybody. Because if you look at where everybody's pointed, it's a typical G.I. Joe that you can shoot. It's like the stormtroopers. You can shoot.
They're literally like 10 feet away.
Exactly. So you couldn't miss, but they missed. So like I said, nothing on this cover is representative of what happens inside. Cobra Commander is in this pod thing, and he attacks the convoy, but is not successful. And then at the end of it, they just go off their separate ways, and the story is set to continue. But nobody dies, and really there's no interaction except, like I said, Cobra Commander in the pod attacks the G.I. Joe convoy, but everybody escapes unscathed. That's the story.
Okay. So that's Charlie's remembrance of when he read it. I will tell you the summary.
Years ago, yeah.
I will tell you the summary from yojo.com.
Yes.
Billy has a new leg thanks to Fred 7, and Cobra Commander has his new battle armor suit. Raptor uses his trained hawks, this is the best part, and accounting skills to find a group of Joes that are testing gear in Colorado. Billy is slowly remembering things, including his training with Storm Shadow, and meets the Blind Master and Jinx.
I don't know that all happens in the same issue, but I guess it must. I mean, the thing is, G.I. Joe was very episodic, or it was very arc driven. So there's really just a lot of very ongoing storyline. Yeah, Billy was Cobra Commander's son, and he tried to kill him. Storm Shadow was not going to let Billy be executed, so he saved him. That's when Storm Shadow left Cobra. And the two of them were a pair, but then Billy leaves to confront his dad, but ends up in a terrible accident where he loses a leg and an eye and is in a coma. And that's when Cobra Commander finds him, brings him back. He gets a robot leg from Fred 7, and yada, yada, yada.
Okay, so what you left out initially was the leg. So you've revised that, so that's good. Mm-hmm. And then you left out the accounting skills. So I think those are the really two important parts.
I think so. Well, and if you Raptors, and thank God, with the, and I'm looking right at it, my collection of the G.I. Joe Classified series, Todd and I have talked about this before, I have a very hard line that stops at the 1985 series, because when you get into the 86
you say you're towing series, the line?
Todd and I were listening to a great one-hit wonder by a dude named Rocky Burnett called "Towing the Line."
Just watch the video, folks.
Google it and find it on YouTube. You will not be disappointed. But anyway, yeah, I because when you get to the 86, 87, and 88 lines on and up, which this is the 87 series, the shit is just too bizarre for me. And so I don't need a Raptor figure. I might get Cobra Commander that armor, because that was pretty dope. But they don't produce a lot of vehicles. But again, a lot of the non-traditional, because you got the same year you had Raptor, you also had a guy who was a hypnotist called Crystal Ball, who was patterned after Stephen King. There was just a lot of weird, and then you get into the Eco Warriors and you get into the Space Command.
That's when it truly got to its golden age. We know that.
The last 5 years of G.I. Joe from 89 to 94, just skip it, please. Pretty please. There was, because again, there was the Sunbow Geek series in 85 and 86. They did G.I. Joe the movie in 87, and then in 1990-91 there was another 2-season cartoon, and that was the last time G.I. Joe was ever on television. That was 30 years gone by.
Wasn't it Extreme? Wasn't that on? There were some shows on the USA Network and things like that.
Maybe that Resolute was one. Didn't you say that was okay?
That Resolute was on Cartoon Network one night,
right? So it was,
yeah.
And I think I have a disc. Maybe you gave it to me, or I finally decided, hey, I better pick this up because it'll probably go extinct.
What I saw of that was very good.
Yeah, gotcha. So anyway, yeah, that's G.I. Joe 59. So the series was still really readable, even with this weird stuff, through at least issue, I'm going to say 115 or so, The Death in the Desert, where you finally had some Joes get killed on a mission. That was really a big deal. But poor Larry Hama, I think he was really pinched to be like, sorry, Larry, we're coming up this weird shit. You got to work into the comic. And he was probably like,
no, those are all real things that happened during his military time, Charlie.
Oh, in Vietnam, they had Eco Warriors and Star Command in Vietnam.
All legit. Okay. Really
all
legit.
Right, very good. Oh my God. Well, speaking of really legit, and again, if you'd like to learn more about G.I. Joe, as Todd mentioned, please visit yojo.com. Or if you'd like to talk to me about G.I. Joe, hit us up on our Discord or over on Threads or Instagram. I'm C3 Carpenter, which I usually mention at the end of the show. But anyway, speaking about completely legit, our honestly very legitimate source of news would be our senior news correspondent at 124 years young, down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, giving out the hottest scoops, talking about Madam Webb with our news. Let's go for it.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Madam Webb, you should be excited. It's big football weekend coming up. Unfortunately, you didn't get to be a cheerleader this year, but, put your application in. I'm sure they're looking for a senior, diversity seniors. You can break out your old beaver skin, your beaver skin outfit, your pom-poms made out of straw, and you'll be there with the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, I don't think so. All right. So what do we got going on here? You're throwing some stuff at me that's like, it's a video game. What's going on?
Yeah. So the first set of news is Sony has been trying to develop their video game properties into feature films and TV series. We've already seen that with Uncharted, Last of Us, Twisted Metal. We are getting God of War. We're getting other ones, Horizon Until Dawn, or Horizon Zero Dawn. But now we're getting one of their games from the PS4 era called Until Dawn being made into a movie from David F. Sandberg and Gary Dauberman. So
Andy Samberg? Oh, exactly. Lonely Island. I love it.
The fun part is David F. Sandberg is known recently for the Shazam films, but before that,
which were fun movies. I liked it.
Yeah, before that, though, he did a lot of horror films, and which is kind of interesting. People thought he was interesting that he would do, because he did, Sandberg made horror shorts in Sweden. His feature debut was Lights Out, and then he did Annabelle Creation. So
we do enjoy those movies.
Yeah.
Annabelle, why do you have to be so evil? You're already so not creepy looking.
Yeah, so Until Dawn is one of those video games that are essentially like choice based, and it's basically
choose your own adventure.
Yeah, kind of like that. Basically, it's got a group of teens going up to this house for the weekend in the middle of nowhere, which is always a bad idea.
Yep. Great pick. Good idea. Do it.
Exactly. And so through it all, then there you find out there's something that's stalking them and killing them. And all through it is the goal is to get as many of these people to survive. So you'll play each character through certain pieces of it. And you have to make decisions. If you stumble in the wrong place, you try to hide and you breathe too loud, you could get killed.
I hate when that happens.
And I love the game, but the cool part is, Charlie, the game actually had a lot of actors in it. It had Rami Malek in it.
Oh, nice.
It also had, trying to remember the girl from Heroes,
Hayden Panettiere.
She was in there, and a few other actors as well. And they've been really good about the people that make this game. Been really good with capturing actors and likenesses. And it's one of my favorite games on PlayStation. Really fun, so it works well for a horror film. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Gotcha. Who's the killer? What happened? Will you survive until dawn? Is essentially the premise. So
gotcha. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I can get down with this. And again, that game is now 10 years old. Okay, so it's a game that's been out for
exactly.
A bit, so. Yep. Well, that's fun. Yeah, I'd be down with that. So anyway, something going in production. We'll see probably 2 years from now. So even though I guess we found the horror stuff is a little quicker turnaround
because they
don't really have to deal with and then we've got to spend $50 gajillion on CGI.
No, they can go to Vancouver, get one of those resorts that are abandoned, and then get a guy in a suit.
Yes. Let me go to my abandoned resorts guy and we'll get this knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. There's literally a billion of those in Vancouver.
So many in Vancouver. They call it abandoned warehouse and mansion of the Pacific Ocean. The
And they're all
Pacific
haunted.
Northwest. Probably haunted. All right. So, okay. So now you're in my wheelhouse with this next one. And I will admit to you, it looks awesome. And but I'm not going to buy a PlayStation to play
I have
it.
a solution for you, Charlie. I have a solution.
Well, I mean, I have a solution too, but let's hear yours first.
Okay. So Xbox had their developer direct, and they were going to highlight 4 games, and one of those games was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is a horrible name, but you know what?
Don't say, at least it's not the Circle Jerk of Destiny or something. Try to put
exactly.
this together.
Exactly. It's kind of weird. So they showed this game. It's made by Machine Games. Machine Games is a fantastic studio.
They said it's made by a machine. It's the first AI video game. What's he doing now?
Exactly. But they made the Wolfenstein series, which the Wolfenstein series is set in like World War II, taking on Nazis. So they're really well done.
Use all the same background. Probably use a lot of the same sets. I mean, because I know sets are a thing in video games because they have to have an environment that they put somebody in.
Exactly. And Wolfenstein is one of the oldest franchises in video games, and people thought, well, how do you make that game good? And you give it to a good team. So Indiana Jones really hasn't been in video games in a long time. I think the last game was
Fate of Atlantis or something.
It was a game that was on I think it was called the Apocalypse Engine or something like that, but it was on the Wii era. So it was the Wii era.
Why does so many of Indiana Jones's things sound like Mad Libs? Indiana Jones in the blank of blank blank.
Uh-oh, Charlie, you uncovered their secret. It's like the Family Guy.
Yeah. The dartboard. Yeah. The random.
Remember that time? Yeah. So Machine Games is making this Indiana Jones game. We didn't know anything really about this. Well, they gave us a trailer. It was almost 3.5 minutes long. We found out it's going to be a first person action adventure. You can use your whip, you can use your gun, puzzle solving. Essentially, you're taking on bad guys again. And this game is set. I believe the chronology is what they said. It's going to come between Raiders and The Last Crusade.
I was trying to figure that out, which is just a 2-year gap because Raiders was 36 and Last Crusade was in 38 and Temple Doom was in 35 because it was a prequel, which some people know, some people don't. Yeah. But my solution is a lot easier. I will simply watch the cutscenes movie, which is what I do with every other video game story because it. I know Todd, you enjoy 2 hobbies that to me are really filled with anxiety, and that's probably why I don't like them, and that's watching live sports and video games because both of them make me very anxious
because you can't control them, right? You can't control video games.
That you can turn it off. You can also turn off the TV. But yeah, I tend to like to not have more anxiety in my life because life is and I don't struggle with a lot of anxiety, but work can kind of drive you nuts sometimes. So why have a hobby that's at some point going to super piss you off? So that's why I stay away from video games, except for the Lego games, which to me are very soothing because the characters build things and then you can have an ice cream and whatever it is. But this looks fantastic. Apart from and. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I read a headline. The guy voicing Indy, isn't it the same guy who voices Joel in The Last of Us?
Correct. Troy Baker. He is a fantastic voice actor. He's done many things. They are using a likeness of Harrison Ford from that period. He doesn't look exactly like him, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's only so much that they can do, even with these very high end AAA video games, as they call them, the ones that are really high end. That it can only look so uncanny valley-ish, like Tarkin and Rogue One, but hopefully always improving, right? Always improving and always looking a little bit more human until it looks a little too human, I guess. But yeah, this is great. And then again, your button on this is, should it inspire TV and films? And we've talked about this many times.
Yes, we have.
I would imagine that our response would be fairly similar, and it would be not with Harrison Ford. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like I said, and it was funny over the holidays. I bought, because it was on sale at Vudu. I've mentioned this before, I pick up movie packs and stuff or like little deals because I have a wish list on Vudu Fandango. And I picked up a 6 or 7 movie pack of the Sean Connery James Bond. Absolutely love them. There's no doubt that the movies don't hold up. I mean, in Thunderball, he did surgery to make himself Japanese. So that does not hold up. My point being that, James Bond has been around since 1962, and it's been cast and recast.
And it didn't stop with Sean Connery, right?
And it didn't. They didn't have to trot out Sean Connery until the day he died to play old James Bond. They kept the core of the character. It's like in we dubbed this week's Code 47, which you may have listened to by the time this came out. We dubbed it Star Trek's Batman, Mr. Spock. And because Spock has been played by a variety of different actors. So it's the same thing. Why is Indiana Jones not played by a different actor? They did it with Han Solo. A lot of people hated it.
Superman.
Maybe that's why they're like, well, people hated Alden as Han Solo, so we can't do the same thing with Indiana Jones. It's a huge missed opportunity to find a different way to say, okay, well, Indy also did, push it further back. Here's Indy in the 20s when he's doing his jazzman stuff in Chicago, or give us the World War II Indy movie that they tried to do with the, CGI de-aging fest that was, part of the movie that failed last summer. I don't know. But yeah, like a TV, like a string of miniseries, like the old Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, that was the recasting they did. And I thought that was popular. So it makes me wonder why it fell off. That was also in the early 90s, and then nothing, which is why Indiana Jones probably lost its popularity, because it fell out of the zeitgeist for an entire generation.
And they didn't, and I think it's called franchise care, really is really the whole part of it. Indiana Jones, like I said, has not had consistent video games, hasn't had consistent comic books, novels, TV series, or anything to really keep you engaged, get new audiences over time. They've had gaps of how many years between films? I mean, we're talking like a decade.
10, 15, 20. Yeah.
That is not how you build up a franchise. That's not how you protect and love it.
Right.
Action figures, collectibles.
Yes. Yeah. Say what you will about Star Wars. Yes, they had that big gap, but since 1999, we haven't really been without Star Wars. There's always been something, and again, the merch is a big part of it, and
novels,
it's the reason that
comics,
like it or lump it, they do keep that franchise in your face. If it's and even in the community, like the 501st, which is the Lucasfilm approved costuming group, does officially license at events at local baseball games. And I know that here in Grand Rapids, they do our local hockey team. That's coming up in a few weeks. And I know all those people who are involved in that, but it keeps people thinking about, I love Baby Yoda, or I love Chewbacca, or Boba Fett, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I know I called him Baby Yoda, but you know what I was talking about, didn't you?
The child.
The Grogu, or I like to actually I have and always will call him Greggy because the week that episode was on, April and I were out, we were like walking out of a Meijer or something and talking about Mando, and I said, what was his name again that they gave him? Was it was Greg or Greggy? No, it was Grogu. Oh, I like Greggy better, so it's always been he's Greggy. He's my Greggy.
Yeah. So, we said, it should inspire, the game should inspire the future of Indiana Jones. And I would say at this point, the easiest thing you could probably do is hire the animation team from What If, get this voice actor.
Boom.
And I don't want What If Indiana Jones tales. I just want Indiana Jones tales. Now, whether they're canon or not, I could give two craps, because they're all about like James Bond. Do we even say, is that canon to whatever? No, he's just having a good time.
He's just a dude. Yeah. And you just think about it. They're all different worlds in the multiverse, or Indiana Jones or James Bond is simply a code name and they give it to some dude. You know what I mean? Where Indiana Jones could just be, they would have a fine time probably adapting those novels from the 90s. Be like, all right, we're making The Fate of Atlantis, and it's a 3-part animated whatever, airing over 3 weeks, and something.
I've solved it, Charlie.
Oh, please.
The dog's name was Indiana, so it's going to be it's going to be with the dog.
Oh, Indiana Jones, but really Indiana Jones. Or they could flip the script and he has a pet who's a dude named Henry Jones Jr. So it then becomes the reverse of Han Solo.
Exactly.
I love it. And then you can't understand what the human is saying.
How do you recast that dog? Wait, what's the dog, guys? You can't recast it. Oh my God, what are you gonna do?
That dog's got an iron cast contract for his likeness, right? It's terrible. Does
Harrison Ford, I mean, he's got kids, right? Can we just cast one of them?
He does, but they're not in the business. Yeah.
Never stopped Harrison Ford.
Yeah. That's right. He was a carpenter when he got
That's
hired.
right.
He built a door frame for George Lucas, and he said, "You know what? I think you should be a movie star.
Based
Come
on
with
your
me."
carpentry skills, you'd be a great
Yes.
actor.
Oh, I really do like the way you frame that top part of the door. I think you should have a career as a multi-million-dollar actor.
Did Shakespeare inspire that door? Of course
so
it
there
did.
you go. Absolutely. All right, moving on. What do you got here? R.L. Stine confirms new Fear Street film is on the way from Netflix. Netflix just still continues to piss me off because I told you no, and I'll tell you why. And it's not because of anything they make. It's because of the fact that I can't watch it when I'm on the road. Didn't I tell you about this? I have to take my travel Roku. I have to plug it in at home so it synchronizes the IP address, and then I can use it on the road. But I have to do that every week or so. So I've never done it because my mother
doesn't seem to have that problem with Netflix with my account.
No, not the account, the device. Because if I'm in a hotel room in Flint and I go to Netflix, it said, "Well, you're not at your home address, so the only way that we can recognize this device."
Tablet then.
Yeah, but you know what, Todd? It's the principle of the thing. It's the principle. Well, it pisses me because Netflix I love watching stand-up, and all of the good stand-up is on Netflix because those are the original productions they do. So it kind of drives me nuts. But anyway, okay, R.L. Stine, not my wheelhouse, so you go right ahead.
Sure. So, Charlie, if you remember, we really enjoyed that Fear Street trilogy. It was 94, 78, 16, 66. So
yeah.
So it was really neat because it was like standalone movies, but they're all connected. They were released like a month apart or something like that. I forgot when they released them, but it was really cool. Really loved the series. And it's basically Fear Street was a series that R.L. Stine did. It was like a grown-up, like Goosebumps for like the high school stuff.
Right.
And so apparently they did really well. And there's a ton of books in the Fear Street series that are all a little bit different. That they're looking to develop a new book series or new movie based on the series called The Prom Queen. And R.L. Stine is once again involved. There's actually, if you go down the link, there's a picture of the cover, and it said she was drop dead beautiful. And there's a picture of looking in the mirror. Yeah,
that's my high school prom date. No, I take that back. She was a very nice girl. And she did not look like a skeleton face, but she did not have a tiara. So, I wonder here. Maybe I'll Todd this book title. I think it's the tiara that is the source of her power. And so potentially within the course of this book, the only way to stop her from absorbing souls or whatever is to destroy the tiara. I don't know. You know what? At me on that one, folks.
It's like Friday the 13th, the series where it was like cursed objects. Yeah.
Yes, that is a cursed object. So this is fun. Yeah, it wasn't one of those, I'm trying to remember, wasn't one of those 3 Fear Street movies. There was a shootout in a supermarket and somebody's head went through like a deli slicer or something.
Oh, it was like a bread slicer. Yeah, it was like that. Yes. Was gross. It was like that was more grotesque than I expected.
That was a little bit more than I was really hoping for. So so this is a standalone film based on. It would be based on this or just the Prom
based
Queen.
On the Prom Queen, in the Fear Street series. So I could see this being evergreen where they could pick another book, develop, and have a good time. And Netflix has done some really good horror stuff. So I don't know when this would occur, but once again, horror films don't take that long, so this could be out next year.
They could roll on this, and it could be even at the end of this year. Who knows? I mean, let's say they're doing it right now. You never know, but could be. So cool. Yeah, I dig that very much. I dig it. All right, what else we got going on? Oh, he's not fat. He was born this way. Remake of The Blob. Now, was the last Blob came out in 1958? Was the first one that I'm aware of?
Yeah, there was 91. I think 91.
88. Came out in 88.
88, okay.
And Kevin Dillon was the star, if I'm not mistaken, of that one.
Yeah, highly regarded too. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, he was the black leather jacket and a huge mullet. That's what I remember about his character in that. Larry Hagman made a sequel to the film. The Larry Hagman made a sequel to the film in 72 called Beware the Blob.
Know that. Okay.
Before a super gory and great remake hit theaters in 88, in which the pink Blob turned into a biological weapon created by the military. Well, you know what? Who else is going to create it? Come on now. But yeah, that's great. And it's funny because no horror movie really made in this day and age is likely to be as grisly and horrifying as something that came out in the 80s. Let's face it. It's just, think about any horror movie you've seen in the last 10 years versus like The Thing or something like this. You know what I mean? It'll be scary, but it's not going to be like, it's not going to be like putting somebody's head through a bread slicer.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I remember seeing the Blob, and I thought it was really interesting because the way they used the Blob, like it had people inside it. You could see him, and they looked horrified.
Oh, there's some
and
dude. He was all,
yeah.
He was. He caught his face. It was like the Sarlacc. But like somebody was like his half of his face was gone. He was like, but he was like caught in a rictus at the time of death. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, the person behind this is David Bruckner. He did that Hellraiser reboot that we did not like.
Oh yeah, and come to realize I hadn't even seen the original, and I was like, "Ugh, this remake doesn't do anything but make me feel uncomfortable."
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, the original Hellraiser, holy crap, that's quite the movie.
Yeah,
but he also did The Ritual and The Night House. So David Goyer is going to be involved with this.
Night House is it all like Roadhouse? Night House.
It is, yes. We only talk about it at night. This could be good. I mean, the Blob is something like I said. It's been how long? Almost 40 plus years. 40 more.
Yeah. And how can you really go wrong? It's it's like one of my favorite Stephen King films, and they subsequently made it into a show, is The Mist. And it's like, ooh, it doesn't sound scary, but they made that movie really scary. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't the mist that was dangerous. It was because there was a mist. There was a bunch of friggin' art. No, there were creatures from another dimension.
I've never seen it.
Thanks to once again the U.S. Army. Oh, bro, it's by Frank Darabont. Before The Walking Dead. Because again, what really made The Walking Dead great early on was him, but then there was all that controversy and got let go. And then The Walking Dead became, in a lot of ways, very also ran. But as far as the really tight scripting and good concept, Frank Darabont was the guy, I think, early on in that show. But yeah, I would recommend that one. It's on my Fandango. Okay. I'm just saying. Go check it out. I think you'll like it. Yeah, the end of the movie, because when April and I watch it, we're on a Stephen King kick several months ago, and she was like, "I love that movie, but they changed the ending from the book, and the ending is brutal to watch." And it's not what you would think. It is not.
So the ending of the book is
of the movie correct, or so I'm told. Oh, okay. Yeah, but no, go. You know what? There you go. You like to give me homework. Boom, gave you homework. Go watch that movie.
Okay, so this will be probably on. This is a Warner Brothers development, so it would most likely be
Max.
on. Well, probably at theaters first, and then going to Max after that.
Gotcha. Good deal. And again, we're just talking about horror, so again, could be out next year. Might have a little bit more CGI in it though, because the creature itself. So yeah, maybe push that out. So, Todd, what a bummer that our own Madam Webb is going back in time. They're turning it into a prequel, Todd. What's up with that? So
this is so Madam Web is essentially going to be a lot like Captain Marvel, where Captain Marvel took place in the 90s. The Madam Web film is going to be taking place in 2003. Charlie, it was our glory days,
like the Last of Us, because The Last of Us, the beginning of it in the television series took place in 2003 because it was a 20-year gap. I'm having some mixed feelings about this one because again, it's the Spumco, which still defies logic to me, that you have a franchise built around Spider-Man, but he's not in it. But you've got a trio of ladies, powerhouse of actors. Got Sydney Sweeney, who they should call her Sydney Swooney. That girl just overtakes me. But I really want to believe that they can turn a corner, but nothing they produce so far is good at all. So naturally it kind of sets the bar kind of low. Now, Todd, are we going to knock out a spoiler cast about this one? Are we going to go see this right away?
You know what? I mean, it doesn't look horrible. It looks like it's going to be generic.
Generic sounds perfect.
That seems to be their wheelhouse. Pretty generic to lame and not really.
But all of their stuff has been really bad. The Venom movies were really bad. Morbius was really bad. So, I mean, can there be a morning after, as the old song goes? I mean, can there be a time that they turn it around?
It's a dead zone, Charlie. What else are you gonna do? It's a Valentine's movie, but you don't have to go to Valentine's for it. You watch The Weekend after Valentine's, and I mean,
I mean, yeah, I don't think that this is the movie that it's in April. Doesn't really care about Valentine's Day, so what? But still,
You can
I
make it
mean,
special by taking her to Madam Web.
oh, there you go. Yes. Oh, honey, Madam Web is a part of our team. But yeah, so this is set in 2003, and I love the headline. If we don't get a Linkin Park or Nickelback needle drop, then what are we doing here?
Exactly.
Look at this boo.
What were we wearing in 2003? I don't think anything that interesting, to be honest. Early
Probably
2000s.
Very similar. Todd, you're wearing a long sleeve ringer tee right now, or
Yeah,
what
baseball. I'm wearing a baseball. I'm wearing my Hellfire Club baseball shirt,
and I'm wearing our SFU logo tee, which can be found on our T Public store. Wink, wink, wink. Notes in the show notes. Link in the show notes, I should say.
I'm guessing girls were wearing shrugs at the time. A lot of those ponchos or whatever.
This was past the time they were wearing the big bell bottom jeans.
Yeah, no wide leg jeans. Yeah, they're going back to straight leg. Were they doing like high waists and mom jeans things? I don't know.
I'm not a woman. I'm a mom.
Well, this is a fun bit right here. Charlie says the film was originally set in the 90s, where we'd learned this was set in the world of the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man movies. But Snyder claims Sony then decided to change over to Tom Holland's Peter Parker, then axed the 90s out of the film entirely. This was a reshoot, so if true, it paints the film's existence in an even weirder light than before. And apparently, Adam Scott is rumored to be playing a young Ben Parker in this too.
So that makes sense, because again, the Tom Holland Spider-Man spared us the misery of, well, let's tell the origin again, because you just knew. So by the time we meet the Tom Holland Spider-Man in Civil War, in that brief bit where Tony Stark goes to meet him, and he merely alludes to the fact that I've had these powers for 6 months and yada, yada, yada. Then we get into Spider-Man Homecoming, where he reveals what's going on with it, with his best, but I want to say Genki, because they pattern Ned after Genki in the Ultimate Spider-Man. But he's explaining to Ned his origin, but he doesn't go on to say blah, 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 my uncle got killed or this and that. So clearly with this, so are they going to have a de-aged Marissa Tomei, or is Aunt May not going to be a factor? I mean, I don't know. With that, they could then turn around and have a more traditional Madam Web. Yeah. But I mean, and again, this character is based on Julia Carpenter, who was the Spider-Woman from first saw her in Secret Wars. She was in the West Coast Avengers after that. She then became Madam Web because she acquired the powers and stuff, but she wasn't an old lady sitting in a chair. She was just someone with psychic powers and all this different stuff.
Grandma Web. That's what we need.
And then the other three super sexy ladies, first of which would be Sydney Sweeney. Excuse me a second. I'm just kidding. And then another one of them is Isabella Merced, the actress whose career is taken off. And who's the third one? Because there's four of them.
I think it's Spider-Woman, isn't it?
Well, no. Oh, I was trying to think of the actress, but no, it's like Aranya and Spider or something or other. Anyway, I will admit, I will admit that I will go see this. I would
Morbiously curious.
Morbiously curious. Oh.
Yes.
I see what you did there. Well, I am, just because of my own, deep love and affection for all things Spider-Man, but then coupled with the fact that
Charlie, you saw Snake Eyes, so at that point, I mean, everything's on the table.
Like I said, that's our next feature on our Patreon segment of A Bad Trip to the Movies with the Cardins is Snake Eyes. We'll be doing that, I think, in April. So look for that.
The Nicolas Cage film, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. No, it's a merging of the two.
So
anyway,
with Storm Shadow. Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, and Todd, we both have to see this because, again, we have to support financially Madam Web, because that money comes back to us. And speaking of money coming back to us, as the news comes to an end, friends, please forgive us for this brief commercial interruption.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, cover bands playing, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So this week, not watching a lot, because I've been watching a lot of football and playing a lot of games, but a new animated series has dropped on Fox, Animation Domination.
Oh, yeah. I think I heard about this.
Yeah, it's called Grimsburg. Now, John Hamm basically is the lead actor in this. He plays Marvin Flute. He is a kind of a washed up detective. previously was the greatest detective, and he lives in a fictional town of Grimsburg and goes on cases. So it's that kind of case of the week. His partner is a part cyborg.
Perfect.
He has an ex-wife played by
Don't we all?
by Erin
Not all of
Hayes.
them.
She was his ex-wife who was raised by bears. Very random.
Sure, why not?
His son Stan
I
Flute.
was always pretty sure my ex-wife was raised by wolves, but
his son Stan Flute is Rachel Dratch.
Dratch.
Yeah, Kevin Michael Richardson, famous voice actor, plays
Oh, yeah.
Detective Greg Summers, who is a cyborg, and Alan Tudyk is Dr. Rufus Pentos. Basically, it's Marvin's former music teacher turned nemesis. So it's kind of like Hannibal, and then he plays Mr. Flesh, Stan's imaginary friend, who's a skeleton.
Oh my god!
Yes, yeah. So, it's really there's only one episode. So, episode out first. It came out in the beginning of January, but it's because of playoffs and things like that. They don't have a draft anymore. But it's a funny show. I'm sure it'll grow on me. It'll the characters will have their things with most like animated series. Takes a while to.
Right.
So far so good. I mean, nothing like immediately stands out. It's goofy.
Yeah.
It's silly. John Hamm's pretty good. You can kind of tell it's John Hamm, but you kind of can't. So he's probably doing a good job of
That's cool.
The voice a little
That's
bit.
Not bad. Yeah. That's not bad, because otherwise it would probably stand the reputation of being a bit stale if it was just like I'm John Hamm. It's like Will Smith. It's like what you've always said about Will Smith. He's just Will Smith in everything he does. So it's like it's
with
not
horses,
acting.
with aliens, with
exactly. What was your line from Wild Wild West? Get off your busted ass horse. Welcome to Earth.
Welcome to Utah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's on Hulu. Come on.
Nobody's welcome in Utah. Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's on Hulu. So check it out. So hopefully we'll probably get 8 episodes, assuming it gets renewed. Maybe more seasons. So gotcha. That is my take on the show. I did watch something you also watched, so we can jam on that together.
Oh, very good. Well, I have a brief kind of tag back. I talked in the last couple episodes about how I'm kind of on a Star Wars kick. I bounce between my various kicks. G.I. Joe to Star Wars. I'm always watching Star Trek, obviously, because we do the show. And then back to Marvel again. So right now I'm on a Star Wars kick, even though there's no new stuff on. Because, I watched, the end of Mando Season 2, because to me, Luke Skywalker chopping up a bunch of droids is kind of where it's at. That led me, I watched the rest of Mando. I watched a bit of the Mando that was within the Book of Boba Fett, and we plowed right through it. And then I thought, you know what? I'll give Book of Boba Fett another stab, because we all really thought, why did they make this show? You and I bitched about it. I bitched about it with Mark over on Holocron. But I thought, you know what? It's been 2 years since that show came out. That show came out at the end of 21. And it was, it did its run basically this time back in 2022. So I thought I'd already watched the last 3. So I'll watch the first 5, I think, or 4 or 5. I can't remember how many episodes there were total. And just see if I get any more out of it. And it kicks off that here we knew that at that last scene of Mando that Boba decided to show up and kill off the heir apparent to Jabba's fortune, which was big fat Bib Fortuna, and he took over. And you're like, okay, where's this going to go from here? And the series starts off that he's sitting in his back to tank because he was all scarred up and stuff from living in the Sarlacc and whatever, and he's dreaming about his life. And you see him get out of the Sarlacc, and then he gets mugged by Jawas in his sleep, which I never understood. They came up and stole all this shit off of him, and he's just like, oh, I'm just chilling. I'm glad they even left him. What if they took his jumpsuit too? Just be laying there naked, no big deal. Just, his nuts burning in the sun. Glad that didn't happen. Didn't need to see it. No offense to Mira Morrison. But then, it's, you follow his journey with the getting, he gets taken by the Tuscans and they turn him into a slave, but then he, earns his freedom by, beating up this Ray Harryhausen creature. And, because I think that one of the big struggles of the series is figuring out, why is he doing any of this? Why does he want to be a crime lord if he's not a crime lord? And I felt, while it's still not great, I'm not going to say, oh my God, it completely changed my mind about it. Now it's my favorite thing. I at least felt like watching this, I understood a bit more about his motivation, because, he was this big bad guy, and then he got stripped down to nothing. He had nothing left. Then he was a slave and getting the shit beaten out of him all the time. Then, he earned his place with the Tuscans and they were his family. Then they got killed off. And then he finally just says, hey, organized crime sucks. But much like my own experience with the cosplay community, where the only way to control the madness is to basically run it yourself. I started a fan club. There's some cosplay involved, and we keep the drama out of it pretty much. I feel like my journey with cosplay is Boba Fett's journey to the show. The only way he figured that he could keep things on an even keel was to be the benevolent good guy that didn't allow any drama. So that's what I got out of it. I don't know. It's weird. Again, I'm not saying I pulled a 180 on this, but I pulled maybe like 55 degrees out of that 180. It pulled me back in another direction. So I understand it a bit more and I like it a bit more than I used to. So I'm not saying, as we say with most things on the show, your mileage may vary. So you may already love it. I respect that. You may never be able to watch again, like Todd, who will never watch it again. I can absolutely guarantee it, unless somebody is like holding a knife at his throat.
I watched the pitch meeting, Charlie, and that reminded me of all the things I didn't want to relive.
And again, I think the fact that that nearly a third of the season is taken up by a story that doesn't involve Boba at all, when they stuck Mando in there with Grogu and Luke and Ahsoka, it's like, I thought that, I still find that unforgivable. That was poor form. I didn't care for that. But it's funny, I watched that part of it in context between Mando's seasons 2 and 3. And then I watched all of Mando's season 3 and liked it a little bit better than I did the first time, but not a lot. So breaking Boba Fett up into that first 5 episodes gave me a little bit more perspective, made me like it a little bit more. So you know what? I guess if there's a moral to the story, sometimes with time, and just like in life in general, time heals all wounds. If the book of Boba Fett hurt you, you might be entitled to compensation. No, I'm just kidding. It's possible that if you give it another shot and maybe think about it in a different way, you might enjoy it somewhat differently. That's what I'm going to throw out there. Doesn't apply to Todd. There's no way he'd ever enjoy it. I understand. That's fair. But you know what? People out there, give it another crack. Who knows? Might be all right for you.
Take some crack and then watch it again.
Well, like that lizard that went into Boba Fett's brain.
Yeah,
you just need one of those.
That was great. That was amazing.
That was good stuff. Absolutely.
I need a Vision Quest in every movie.
I do, especially lizard induced. There's no doubt about it. All right, so you and I both watch. April and I are huge fans of the Colbert Report. No, it's not the Colbert Report. It's the Late Night with Stephen Colbert, because I love him. Usually we watch the first half because the interviews get kind of boring, but we watch his plug at the beginning. And about 2 months ago, he had comedian Taylor Tomlinson on. I love Taylor Tomlinson. Saw her live here in concert in Grand Rapids last year. Had enjoyed both of her Netflix specials. And he brought her on and he said, hey, my news is that we're bringing back At Midnight, or we're going to be calling it After Midnight, which was a great show with the now... Is Chris Hardwick canceled? Does he still do things? Because I knew that he
was a voice actor in Crepopolis. So, and he's in this show called Bar Something or Other. It's
Something or Other. That is a
Barpocalypse or something, like where they play games at a bar. It's so dumb, but he's on that.
Okay. Yeah, because he did, he was in this whole thing. Oh, his ex-girlfriend said he was abusive, but there was no proof, but it kind of destroyed his career anyway, or something. Wasn't it something like that? I don't know. I'm not trying to make light of it. I feel like I remember that ultimately the case, there wasn't a legal case, but in the court of public opinion, it kind of killed him, or it hurt his career without a doubt. So I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that. But anyway, that was a show that I feel like was on Comedy Central, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer. But I feel like April and I watched.
People watch Comedy Central?
Yeah, people watching comedy when there were cable networks. I feel like April and I watched it together, but I could be wrong. So within the last 10 years. But anyway, she announced that we're rekindling this show. It's going to air after this show that I'm on, the Late Night Show with Colbert, and it's going to be in early January. So cool. I'm excited. They're bringing it back. Monday was the Emmys, so it started on Tuesday of this past week, so essentially a week ago if you're listening to this when it comes out. And the first night's guest had Whitney Cummings was one of the guests. I adore her. She just had a baby, but she looks fantastic. And the other two guests, now I'm already forgetting.
Brongholder and then
awesome dude,
an Indian comic. Can't remember her name.
Oh yeah, Pavna or some such. Anyway, the first night to me, I was laughing. I was having a fun time. And I know there were 3. I'm kind of drawing a blank on the second one. The third night, I thought really fell flat. I don't know. Have you watched all 3?
I only watched the first one, but that's kind of true about that show in general. It all depends on the comics. Like I used to,
It's super dependent because they bill it as a rekindling of the old show, which is basically like watch this internet clip and heckle it or make comments about it or have fun with it. And yeah, I thought that first night was a slam dunk. The second night, like I said, I'm just not clicking with who was on it, but I just remember the third night they had some folks I didn't know. And one of the comics in particular, you could just really tell it wasn't, even Taylor seemed uncomfortable. It just really wasn't clicking. So it makes, and then I read a headline of some wag who said, well, it's very uninspired, whatever. People are going to say that stuff. So I don't know. But again, judging by that first episode, which clearly you watched as well, when you have a cast, you have a guest cast that's working for that particular episode, it really clicks. But that third episode, I feel like it was the third episode, it really crashed for me. So I won't say it makes me fearful.
Are they so 1 for 3, or would you say they're 2 for 3?
You know what? It's kind of like they're 1 up, 1 down, and then I would have to look it up I don't even remember the second episode, so it's kind of like a nil. So I would call it a tie because the third episode, the middle episode, I just don't remember. But again, like I said, when I get up in the morning, whether I'm home or I'm on the road, I watch Colbert. I watch The Daily Show, but it's not back yet, which is kind of frustrating.
So it's random host again, right?
No, it's just not on. It has been on since the middle of December.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on with that. Even though they won an Emmy or they were up for an Emmy, like there was a post on one of their social medias that look, we won an Emmy, and I went into the comments, when's the show coming back? Because I want to know. I've loved The Daily Show since we were in college, Todd. You and I watched that together. So yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen with this. I hope it finds an audience. I love Taylor. I'm happy for her success. But it could fall into the same pitfall of the original show. And of course, with nostalgia goggles on, I could say, oh, the old show was always great. I'm sure it wasn't always great. I'm sure they had terrible episodes with bad contestants, as it were. Because it's a combination of this, basically internet spoofery and then Taylor talking to her contestants or her guest stars about what they do, and it doesn't seem like it's much of the second one, but that's okay too. Podcasts are like that too. You listen to a podcast where, let's say it's 2 stand-up comedians, one will throw the other one, said, hey, Todd, you got some tour dates coming up. Like, yeah, I'm in Tacoma, Washington on blah blah blah. So it's that kind of thing.
I think it's also because the original At Midnight was only half hour. This is like an hour long. I think that's...
Is it really? I felt like it was going on really long.
Yeah.
But it's so early in the morning, it's not like I'm looking at my watch and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's just way too long. It needs to be condensed. I know they have to fill the time, but and maybe it should be half and half. Maybe like, let's do this part, and then the second part is maybe interviews or something. I don't know. I don't know if that's interesting or maybe just stand up.
It just do an interview. This sounds like that would break up any kind of flow they might have. So I don't know that would click, but you don't know. So I won't say I'm fearful that it won't make it. I don't know. I don't know how long the original was on or what killed it. I don't know. Maybe the whole controversy with Hardwick is what killed it. I have no idea. I just don't really recall.
Yeah, and it's the first week, right? So I know like when any like talk show host, the first week is always like, or even the first year is like funky. It doesn't always feel right. So give him some time. Give him, her, also she was fine. Yeah. I think she laughed too much sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that too. Is that she has to do her own balance, and when you have really great comedians because they're cracking each other up. But yeah, I thought, like I said, by that third night they had one comedian who just really seemed like she didn't fit in. Like it was just like, oh, and we booked this whoever. Watch the third one and tell me what you think.
Okay.
Because it was something. It was the woman in the middle. She was a short Jewish woman, glasses, something was just not clicking. I don't know. And I'd never heard of her. So
okay.
But that's neither here nor there. But I tend to know a lot of these stand-ups because it's something that I enjoy watching a lot of, because I'm a funny guy and I'm looking for material. I like to laugh. So anyway, well, cool. Well, yeah, After Midnight is on Paramount Plus, and of course, Book of Boba Fett is on Disney Plus if you've never watched it, which you probably have. All right. Well, that takes us out of being in the Geek Easy. Give it a big old spit in my drink. Right back at him. But Todd, we're due for the Thunderdome. Over in the land down under, got to get out that Air Qantas app, because Hologram Tina and the mutants await us to talk about dormant or damaged franchises. Let's make it happen.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants have been gathered for a topic or game to be entertained. This week, our topic is going to be dormant or damaged franchises and how we'd resurrect them. So it's really the key part to this is how we would resurrect them. So it's not necessarily what it was, not necessarily a sequel or a reboot or a remake, whatever you want to call it. It's really what we think, if it does come back, how would it work and how would it be successful? We've seen that with different franchises all over the board. We won't dull you with examples we've already talked about in the past, because I'm sure Charlie could tell us 18 years of how Star Trek has reemerged every time. He has a podcast for that.
You need Snake Eyes. Give us Snake Eyes, the one with Nicolas Cage, like you said, or the one with him and the bees. What was the one with him and the bees?
That would be the Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, so basically I'll start. And I, basically what I'm thinking of is it could be a something that deserves a sequel, could be something that's just been gone for way too long and probably just needs to come back. So I'm going to start with my first, and that will be the movie Dredd. Not Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone. That was horrible.
Oh, Dredd, the 2012 Dredd with what's his nuts?
Yeah, so that was Carl Urban.
Yeah,
Lena Headey. Just a great film that essentially was open to have Carl Urban come back as Judge Dredd in more adventures, more things that could really play with the time frame, the premise of the judges. And I just really thought it was amazing. And I think it does deserve a sequel. Now, did they really need to change anything? No, I like the premise. The first premise was all about going through that building. They could do something else. It's not like you have to do like Speed, where it's like, I'm on a boat and I can't go slower than 2 knots.
Right. Speed on a boat. The bus that couldn't slow down.
Exactly. We're on a staircase and it has to keep going up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I think Dredd would be amazing. Carl Urban is a great actor. We've seen him. I mean, he's really busy right now, so I don't know if he would be up for it, but I would love to see the Dredd franchise grow and build off of that, because I think it was a great film.
Right.
Probably didn't do well at the box office, so that's why they didn't greenlight a sequel, but I know it's well loved by many.
That's one of those that I'm like, was it ever at the box? I feel like it was just online, but again, it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm glad you made a list, because I'm just going to pick off your list.
You're stealing.
Well, it's just a list. It doesn't say don't touch unless you write it on there.
It
like you stuck a Post-it note to it in the refrigerator, Todd. I ate a tuna fish sandwich named Kevin last week. I'm going to steal from your list, because again, I'm just like, Spaceballs was great. I mean, come on. Now it's been 35 years, because that came out in 1987, same time as Star Trek: The Next Generation, so it's that old. And Mel Brooks is still with us. Has he made a film? And when's the last time he made a film?
Dracula Dead and Loving It.
That was in the 90s. Are you serious?
Exactly.
So he really retired.
But he's executive. Well, he went into like doing production of his how to succeed in business without really trying. The producers, all those things. He was big into producing his old stuff. Young Frankenstein. He was on like a couple episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh,
He
yeah, there you
also executive produced the new was it History of the World Part 2 as well.
Oh, there you go. But I mean, Spaceballs doesn't work as anything but a movie, and it already has a sequel title, Spaceballs 2: The Quest for More Money, or wasn't it that pretty much? So whether I mean it'd be recap. Bill Pullman has passed along, if I'm not mistaken. Did he pass away? Bill Paxton passed away.
Yes,
didn't
Bill
Pullman
Pullman's
pass
still
away?
alive. No, he's still
Are you
alive.
sure? Yeah. All right. And
let me look it up, because then we'll,
Okay.
our podcast will get like
yes,
viral because they said he's dead.
exactly. Well, Daphne Zuniga, I believe, still around. She was female lead. John Candy has passed away. Joan Rivers has passed away. But it's not to say that it couldn't be a reboot of some kind. Probably a reboot makes the most sense because it's been so long. So reboot it, make it a little edgier with more topical humor. Though really, even in rewatching it, there's not a ton of the humor that's really super dated. I don't think. I don't know. I'm kind of playing it over in my head again. It's not like you could.
It's Mel Brooks humor.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can still watch and be offended by if you're easily offended. You can still watch, to my regard, the funniest comedy of all time, which is a Mel Brooks film, which is Blazing Saddles. Still always be my favorite. But again, not really for a modern audience, where I don't feel like there's anything in Spaceballs that's so raunchy or offensive, or even a concept of it, that they couldn't find a way to make it. But I think it would have to be a full reboot with an homage or a cameo potentially from any of those surviving actors. We also lost was it it wasn't Dick Clark, it was the Dick Van Patten, who was the king. And he's dead. He's got to be dead.
Well,
I mean, you say that, and then Dick Van Dyke is still alive.
John Candy's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Rick Moranis doesn't act anymore.
Right. All right. But the guy who was the Colonel Sanders, who was also the lawyer in Fletch, who I love it, Leonard T. Pants Esquire, the attorney of the former Mrs. Irwin T. Fletcher, which jogs my memory. There's still that Flash movie with John Hamm that I've not watched. So look, that spun me off in another direction.
You mean the Fletch, not the Flash?
Unfortunately,
I'd love to see it. I've heard that Fletch movie is very good.
Yeah.
Charlie, did you know there was a Spaceballs animated series?
I did. I was going to bring that up, but I think it wasn't that long ago. But where is it? Where does it live?
So it came out in 2008, 13 episodes. Mel Brooks created and except produced it, and it did have voices of Mel Brooks, Daphne Zuniga, Joan Rivers, Tino Insana, Reno Romano, D. Bradley Baker, and also in that, I did not know this, Dom DeLuise was still alive and revoiced Pizza the Hut.
Oh my God. Pizza is going to send out for you. I mean, that is, again, when that movie came out, we were preteens. It was everything that a kid who enjoyed Star Trek and Star Wars and Buck Rogers and any kinds of that stuff just absolutely enjoyed, because it was poking fun at it. But again, it was not super racy, and anything that was like, Snotty beamed me twice last night, it was fantastic. It was just very much over our head.
Sure.
It's not a big deal.
It was double entendres.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that one gets my big pick. Now that you mentioned it. So yeah.
I mean, so they did an animated series. Would it work? To bring it back, I don't know, but I mean, people like comedies like that. Could it be like a Netflix movie?
Yeah.
Could that work? I don't know who executive produced Spaceballs. Was that like, it
back
says
in the
MGM
day?
Television? Oh, it was on G4. That was crazy.
And that's why you've never heard of it. The thing is, I've heard of it, but then I say to you, well, I've heard of it, but where does it live?
Well, G4 doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, it became that.
Right. So it's just out there. And that's why there's not any interest in any more of it. So
check your latest Comic-Con DVD guy.
Oh God, yeah, that guy at Chicago with all the Blu-rays that are just all. Here's here's the Star Wars holiday special, but it's in HD. I'm like, that's not actually possible.
Well, I like how they get modern like streaming shows, and they're on disc now. It's like those are never on disc. Somehow they're on disc.
They're still not. Wink.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So very good. So I'll continue. I do like Spaceballs. I think it could come back because there's so many. And just treat it like it's not just Star Wars. It's like all science fiction,
right?
That you would do, kind of like not another teen movie. Maybe that's just what we need. Maybe we need just not another teen Star
Not
Wars
another,
film.
not another sci-fi film or whatever it is you would call it. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So next, I'm gonna go to, and I don't know how this would work, but I think it could be a lot of fun. Kurt Russell has been in so many awesome franchises and series, and one he never went back to was obviously The Thing. That never came back to, but he never came back to Big Trouble in Little China. And I thought that was such a fun, just weird, anything could happen. The main character, Jack Burton, Pork Chop Express, and it's like, seemed like this wasn't his rodeo. He'd been on many, many adventures, and it was kind of like a modern Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really cool to have it like bring it back where you see like a really old Jack Burton, kind of like, is he still doing his thing? Is he like an old crank? And then you bring in
he would look like Bubba Hotep. Oh, and bring in his son like they did in the Godzilla
exactly,
thing that we
like
just
he
wrapped
find
up.
out a long lost, bastard that he didn't know, and
long lost bastard. There you go. That's
exactly,
the name of the show.
Or yeah, Kim Cattrall's son. I don't care, whatever you want.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
they finally hooked up again and met up.
Probably
but I
so.
think that would be so fun, and I think it could be get somebody. Not John Carpenter doesn't really do anything these days, but get somebody who. And I would say pick James Gunn, but obviously he's busy with DC. But I think James Gunn gets the feel of it. He could really bring it some justice.
Just pull it in and make it a DC property. That'll work.
That would be fantastic. But I think if you could find somebody, kind of like the Ash versus Evil Dead. I thought that was a great series, kind of the same tone. Do it with this. I think it could be very fun in a new movie. And I think it would be wonderful. I just thought that was such a cool idea of bringing this guy into a world of magic and mystery. He could do that in so many different lenses, and it's a shame we never got more.
Right. Well, we do two each. We'll kind of wrap this up. So I'll steal another one off your list. G.I. Joe would be the obvious choice, but you're gonna be pissed. I'm gonna steal Mystery Men because oh my gosh, that was
hey now Charlie, you're an all-star.
That was the little movie that never could, but it was born off of the dynasty of Ben Stiller in the 90s because Janine Garofalo was there. So what other evidence do you need of just some also ran superheroes just who were just kind of losers, who were not all stars. They were not the A squad of super dudes. And I think you picked this up in the traditional, because again, it was 25 years ago, and probably most of the cast is still around. Because who was it? Janine was in it. William H. Macy was in it. That I can remember.
Herman.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then there's one that you can't.
Eddie Izzard.
Eddie Izzard is still around. Yep. Yeah, so I think you could continue the story where maybe it's these guys have been doing the same. I remember so little about the movie, but I just remember that was really fun. I just remember Ben Stiller's line, "Hey man, have you seen my wallet? It's got a picture of a kitten on it and says hang in there or something." That's what I remember.
Just hang it, yeah,
just hang in there. I remember the fun, and I enjoy Ben Stiller stuff. Where has Ben Stiller landed recently? What have I seen?
He's been into like producing and filming like these very like high end like docudramas and things like that. Because he hasn't been in any, like the last thing he was really into was those series of Night at the Museum. Big into those. That was his last big like broad kind of comedy.
People pleaser kind of thing, the kids, because my kids love those, I remember. So but that would get my vote. I think that could be fun. But again, I don't really see it being anything more than very niche, because again, franchise care. There's been no anything for that since 1998 when that came out. So so again, it would be very niche. So make it on the cheap and put it on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, and then you get people to enjoy it.
Yeah, you could, because that one series I told you, Extraordinary. That, which is really, I highly recommend. It's very funny sitcom. Kind of follows Mystery Men because one of the characters wants to create a group of like costume vigilantes, and it goes accordingly as you think. Just people with weird powers. So
kind of like which they covered in Deadpool 2. With his
exactly.
X-Force. Yeah, exactly.
And Mystery Men was actually based on a comic book character named Flaming Carrot. He basically, the guy Bob Burden, created a lot of those characters. So there's probably more adventures with those characters that they could probably pull something from it if they wanted to make another one. But yeah, I think that just any type of show where it's not like, because it seems like what we're getting right now with superheroes is like everything's like over the top and grotesque. But why don't you do something goofy, a little more fun? Around with it, because we don't have many of those. So I think that would work. It might even work as like a TV series, Charlie. They could do animated, like The Tick.
The
Tick. Tick was great. Oh, that's another one I thought.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. What do you? Yeah. What's Patrick Warburton up to? No, was the most recent version of that animated or was it live?
No, it was live action, and they had I can't remember the guy's name. He was in. Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was a really good series. I really liked it. I think it got 2 seasons on Amazon. But yeah, the Tick was great. Glad I got it. So for me, this is the really hard one because there's a couple here are like dear to my heart.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they really deserve or should get something. But I will go to an easy one, and that is it's not even on this list. It's the Dresden Chronicles. It was one season on Sci-Fi, and it's based on a series of books, and I really enjoyed it. The books are a little bit more hard-edged noir magic books.
I'm trying to think of who the star was. It's one
Paul
of 2
Blackstone,
people. There you go. He was in he was that I can picture his face. He was a villain in 24, season 3.
Yep.
And then he was one of the 3 bad guys in Battlefront 2, the cutscene movie, which I just watched. And it's a very accurate face sculpt of him, I thought. So it really looks like him. He's the main bad guy
Paul Blackthorne, not Blackstone.
Blackthorne. You know what? You had the black part just sounded very British, and he's a very British dude. So
yeah, and he played the dad detective on Arrow.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, I really loved it. It was just, it was like the crime of the week, but it did build an over arc. I really thought it was good. I like the fact that it was basically, he was kind of an outcast, a detective. He would use magic begrudgingly, but it was just a lot of fun. I think that had a lot more, more opportunity to do some cool things. Now they could go darker and bring it back to something else, maybe a little like, sex and violence and play with that. That could work too. But yeah, really, really a fun show, and I think it could work well today. With obviously a lot of people need content, and I think it would work really well.
What do we need? Content. When do we need it? In 12 to 18 months.
Exactly. Now, Charlie, I will give you a bonus one, and that's something you would cover. We've covered before, but G.I. Joe.
Sure. Absolutely.
G.I. Joe. I think we'd go down the route of Peacemaker. And we go a little bit more mature but comedic, and they kind of deal with the fact that why are we wearing these outlandish comic costumes? Why are we doing this in Cobra, or even make an Adult Swim version of it, like a Takeoff? And I think it could be a lot of fun. I think they've tried to do the straight, narrow,
just be satirical, and just ridiculous. But because G.I. Joe, if you look at it, has it's failed on the big screen pretty poorly, at least critically, and I think financially it didn't really do much, obviously, with Snake Eyes, because this is the beginning of our new franchise and blah blah blah. The figure line has its hardliners. The comics have their hardliners, you know what I mean? But as far as a mainstream success, there hasn't been anything since what happened back in the 80s. But as you pointed out, what made particularly like G.I. Joe, the movie, such a big hit is that it leaned into the ridiculous. Cobra La and, Globulus, the half snake guy, and Cobra Commander's really a snake dude, and all this, Sergeant Slaughter with his roughneck renegade guys, and Don Johnson as Lieutenant Falcon. Everything about that film totally worked. And the fact that Duke got injured and then he passed out, and then Scarlett goes, he's in a coma. I'm like, when did she become the doctor? It was great.
Where's Doc?
Yeah. Oh, Doc was dead. I think later he showed up and said, yep, Scarlett was right. And they didn't have tricorders back then. How did she know? I don't know. It's fallacy. But anyway, I agree with you. If you made G.I. Joe purposefully silly, but like an Adult Swim kind of.
Will Ferrell plays General Hawk or something like that, kind of like I mean, something like that would be funny.
Yeah.
You get like some comedic actors, and you do give it like a MacGruber type of thing. I think could be a lot of fun. Why not?
Oh,
What else
yeah,
do they have to lose except maybe
you know,
gain some fans?
Yeah, the big inspiration of that was, and I never saw it until recently, was in the last season of Community where they did G.I. Jeff.
Yes,
and it was a G.I. Joe spoof,
exactly.
all animated with the Community characters. I agree. Cool. All right, we calling wrap on that then? Are we good?
I think so. So, folks,
right.
if you have ideas of, I mean, I had a list that was very long. I could go on for days. I want Buffy to be back as an animated series. That's not going to happen.
Right.
You know, there's many things to do. We already talked about Indiana Jones. We're going to bring it back.
Right.
So if you have any in your mind, what you would like, let us know and how you do that.
I love it. Easy to do that, particularly if you are on our Secret Friends Unite Discord. That's where a lot of great conversations happen. Everything ranging from comics, book, movies, video games, non-genre stuff like food and sports and what have you. We're having a good time with all that kind of stuff. So you can find us by searching us on Discord if you're a fan. But yeah, and always there's our Patreon, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. It's a great way to get access to all of our content, and of course, just our regular secretfriendsunite.com website for the vanilla stuff. But Todd, where do people find you out there?
They can follow me on Threads at Toxtra, at Secret Friends Unite, on Twitter at Toxtra, and at Secret Friends U. Join the fun.
Very good. All right. I'm also over on Threads and Instagram, C3 Carpenter, just spell it out. Once again, active on the SFU Discord. But my big love in life is the USS Grand Petoskey's chapter of the International Star Trek Fan Club that my wife and I run here in West Michigan. We are part of a network in Region 13, which is Michigan and Eastern Canada, that I'm very privileged to run. If you are a Trekker within the sound of my voice, either in those places or elsewhere, would like to learn more about Starfleet International, the website is sfi.org. We have a Grand Petoskey website, and we have a website for Region 13. Give them a quick Googs, and you can find us. Reach out, and we will help you trek it up with a Trekker in your nearby spot. With that, friends, as always, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
Use the Schwartz.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.